Good morning, everybody. This is a live severe weather briefing as we have a high risk in place across northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, into central Tennessee. But I do believe that the threat of dangerous weather extends much further north as well, central and western Tennessee into central and western Kentucky. We've already got dew points in the lower 70s in southern Mississippi as that warm front's lifting north. I'm in Columbus, Mississippi, and I've already been hearing thunder this morning with elevated storms just to the north of that warm front. And I even caught some visual of some convection through the holes in the clouds. But this is the high risk, maxed out tornado probabilities across this zone, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are expanded just a little bit further north as well. And this is a very scary sign here from the RAP model, showing a wide open, clean, warm sector, untainted by early morning convection. And this is a very dangerous sign here to see. Down here in the southern United States, looks like you're going to have multiple bands of initiating storms. The main front back here near the Mississippi River Valley, the models have been hinting at a prefrontal confluence line as well. There across central Mississippi, storms could develop down near the Jackson area and then race off to the northeast near the Columbus area up toward Tuscaloosa. Additional modes closer to the surface low as well, central western Tennessee up into central western Kentucky. This is the primary warm front right here, and the surface low is forecast to lift off to the northeast like this. And one thing I've been noticing with the high resolution ensembles is there does seem to be a shift in the greatest tornado probabilities just a little bit to the north, including a large portion of central and western Tennessee. And instead of a shift, I should just say an expansion, because well to the south of that surface low, you've got a prime environment for strong, long track, violent tornadoes as well down into central and northern Mississippi. But this is definitely a scary sign with this RAP model showing just a wide open warm sector here across multiple states, also with a very favorable environment for those strong, long track tornadoes. You can also see very favorable low-level wind shear across a multiple state zone, even a slug of some enhanced wind shear down in the southern mode. One of those in the vicinity of one of those prefrontal renegade confluence lines. The RAP also shows initiation of supercells by about 1 or 2 p.m. across northwest Mississippi, and these are going to race across the state into central and western Tennessee as well, and northeastern Mississippi. Additional modes will develop across southern Mississippi and race just on the northern edge of those 70 dew points that are forecast to lift north into central Mississippi and Alabama. So a multiple faceted event, multiple modes of severe weather expected to evolve across the warm sector and even across central and western Kentucky. It does look like you're going to have lower instability, higher shear type of an environment up there. Definitely some dangerous tornadoes up there as well. See if I can open this sounding real quick here. Let me show you the surface evolution of the surface low there, lifting up through northern Arkansas, through the Missouri boot heel with time. This is at about early afternoon also, 1 to 2 p.m. But really the dangerous part is definitely kind of the multifaceted nature of this outbreak. The clean, wide open warm sector with big instability, very strong wind shear. And look at these dew points down into southern Mississippi there. Dew points rising up into the low 70s. That's incredible moisture for this event. I also saw there's also a day 3 threat for the next system coming in down here in the southern U.S. Dew points already here in Columbus, 64 over 63 with a little bit of fog. I just stepped outside and I could really see that low-level jet just racing from south to north, and that warm front is on the way. You can see it surging north through southern Mississippi this morning. You can also see these northerlies back in Arkansas with behind the main boundary. But really a wide open, clean, warm sector expected. And the morning sounding from Lake Charles shows an incredible elevated mix layer, or that dry slot just above the ground. Let me show you that here. Pulling that up in real time. Ooh, there it is. So this is the observed sounding out of Lake Charles. And a couple things to note here. The incredible strong elevated mix layer. and that's going to act to support this wide open, clean, warm sector. A lot of instability is going to build because of that. And this is a monster elevated mix layer here. See this dry air just above the ground from the morning sounding? Thank you, Isaac, for sending me this. This is going to act to steepen those lapse rates, bring breaks in the clouds, and in fact, we've even got a double-barreled elevated mix layer there, even in the mid-levels. This is the Lake Charles sounding. You can see abundant CAPE in here, that area between the parcel ascent and the environmental temperature. And already favorable curved photograph down there in Lake Charles. So this environment's going to advect rapidly northeast across the target area today, across the entire state of Mississippi, Alabama, nosing up into Tennessee with that bigger instability as well. We're going to have more directional shear out here across Mississippi, those south-southeasterly surface winds shifting over to south-southwest, low-level jet in excess of 60 knots. So an incredibly favorable environment out here for tornadoes, and that's why we got the second high risk during the month of March issued. The last time that happened, 1991, so a long time ago since the last time we've had too high risk during the month of March. So definitely a very active spring season well underway, and it looks like another event, day 3 out here. That would be Saturday when another event comes in here through the south central United States. So now let's pull up another product here. These are the high resolution ensembles from the Storm Prediction Center. Kind of a good tool to use to kind of see how the environment is evolving. I assume these are obviously not the 12Z runs, but we can look at them anyway. And you can see here, 2 to 5 kilometer updraft helicity tracks basically shows the evolution of these mesocyclones. But you can see the tornado probabilities are overlaid here as well, based on composite parameters, the presence of storms. And notice how that environment by 23Z is across northeastern Mississippi and really expanding across central and western Tennessee by about 6 to 7 p.m. You can definitely see that northward shift. Look at that, central western Kentucky, those tornado probabilities. Even nose up into central western Kentucky. Definitely shows quite a rapid shift to the northeast of that shear too by the early evening. That's going to shift that tornado threat across northern Alabama, central Tennessee, including the Nashville area, up into south central Kentucky as well. But this is a big time outbreak evolving right here. These models also show the renegade storms developing along that convergent boundary from just north of Jackson through the Columbus area up toward Tuscaloosa to the north of there. Looks like a prime corridor for those long track supercells. Also, additional modes develop across northern Mississippi, northeastern Arkansas. Those expand across western Tennessee. In fact, becoming a very long track event. You can see these are a lot of these are tri-state supercells, multiple state supercells, even eventually slamming into the western Appalachians. But late night tonight, there definitely is a threat of tornadoes across northwestern Georgia, even eastern Tennessee, southeastern Kentucky as well. Just kind of giving you an idea of the forecast confidence within this outbreak. Again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to stay tuned to those watches and warnings as this outbreak evolves. Information saves lives, especially when it's coupled with an effective severe weather safety plan. About as dangerous as it gets for severe weather. I'm trying to contemplate whether I should head a little bit north toward the Tupelo area or if I should stay down here for that secondary mode. (13Z) outlook is also up. So here is the HRRR. Let me shift on over to that map really quick. And this is this morning, kind of showing these elevated storms to the north of that advancing warm front. Shows the surface low there in northwestern Louisiana. That's going to lift off to the northeast. And you can definitely see that open warm sector already beginning to develop down there with those low 70s dew points. And now that we're in the morning of the event, I'm going to start looking at the HRRR composite reflectivity to get an idea of storm mode, timing for initiation as well. You can see the surface low located near the Memphis area by late morning, by about 10 a.m. And it's already got this prefrontal confluence line. Basically, with storms initiating near the Vicksburg area, northeast, through the Columbus zone, already by 16Z, 17Z. You've already got storms starting to mature into central Mississippi there. Surface low deepening just to the northwest up to 1,003 millibars. And the morning HRRR does seem to be a little bit further south with that surface low well into early afternoon. And here you can see those supercells evolving across central Mississippi. This one, initial storms already passing very near the Tupelo area. The main convective line also generating round after round of supercell storms. Renegades developing all the way down toward the Columbus area. And some of those initial storms move rapidly across northeastern Mississippi into northwestern Alabama already by 20Z. And you've got another round of supercells developing now to the southwest of Jackson by this time, by about 3 p.m. You've got dangerous supercell storms across northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, moving into central Tennessee. And this is the development of those new renegades across central and southern Mississippi there. I also want to keep these in play, so I don't necessarily want to be in northeastern Mississippi all the way into the jungle of northwestern Alabama. But then there's this southern mode developing near Jackson that's going to lift northeast through Columbus, 3-4 p.m. Could always drop south and intercept these as well. Play the Tupelo storms, drop back south, and play the Columbus storms as well. You've also got dangerous storms across central, western Tennessee. But the HRRR favors this southern mode a lot more than the Ensembles, a lot more than the 3-kilometer NAM as well, which kind of eject the shear up into more central Tennessee, northwestern Alabama. But this southern mode here from Columbus to Tupelo, northwestern Alabama, multiple rounds of dangerous tornadic supercells. This is at 7 p.m. We've already got a couple of supercells from Tuscaloosa up through northwestern Alabama into central Tennessee near the Nashville area as well. Low-level jet still cranking into that southern mode, approaching 70 knots there out of the southwest. Surface winds are still very backed as well, out ahead of these storms. And then there's going to be a late night tornado threat across northwestern Georgia and eastern Tennessee. Looking at the dew point fields, it does look like those upper 60s dew points get just a little bit pinched off. But you're still, or the 70 dew points, but just to the north of that, you still have mid to upper 60s across central Tennessee, northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, but that really deep tongue of moisture. And the models have been pretty consistent with this prefrontal convergence line. You can definitely see it very well there at 0Z. And look at this slug of moisture. Columbus up toward Tupelo. You've got, by 20Z, you've got dew points rising into the 70s there across central northern Mississippi. And I think this prefrontal confluence line right here that goes from about Yazoo City up toward Tupelo is going to be the focus for those supercells developing by early to middle afternoon. And these are going to race off to the northeast through northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama. And there's your big helicity as well, mostly just to the east and the southeast of that line. That's where the greatest wind shear resides. Basically a line from Yazoo City up to Tupelo, up toward Nashville, and just off to the east of that. So even though the HREF does, and that was we'll have to see what the 12Z ensembles show, but it definitely shows a prime environment across central western Tennessee lifting into Kentucky. Whereas the HRRR definitely maintains this confluence line with a more prime environment along and just to the southeast of that confluence line. Looking at some of these forecast photographs here, PDS tornado soundings and photographs all over the place. You get a 50 to 70 knot, 1 kilometer wind. Nearly due southerly weaker surface winds, creating 30 to 40 knots of 0 to 1 kilometer shear, basically across all of central northern Mississippi, central northern Alabama, into central Tennessee as well. There you can see that photograph. And as I mentioned, I was hearing some thunder so far this morning. See if I can upload my as live here too. Yeah, this is the environment, prime environment here. 3 to 4 p.m. showing that immense low-level cape. And there is quite a bit of low-level cape in here into western Tennessee as well by 21Z. I definitely think there's going to be tornadic supercells up in this mode as well. Even though they're more straight line photographs up there within that environment of extreme low-level cape out there. There you can see those steep lapse rates at the low levels. Big elevated mix layer, but a little bit more straight line photographs to the northwest of this prefrontal confluence line. Where everywhere along and just to the southeast of this confluence line, this thing's just going to be like a fire hose of supercells. It's just going to eject supercell after supercell there. Central northern Mississippi into central and western Tennessee, and look at all these supercells lined up. This is the 11Z HRRR here. Might want to be on this storm by this time, lifting into northwestern Alabama. Then it could drop back south and intercept this second round, mode after mode of supercells. Definitely want to be down here, closer to Columbus by about 4 to 5 p.m. Isaac just set a record high mid-level lapse rate for Lake Charles, and that advecting over this moisture is really what's creating this big-time instability out here throughout the warm sector. Very dangerous day ahead here, folks. Let's see what the 3 kilometer NAM is showing. The 3 kilometer NAM initiates these storms across southeastern Arkansas. That confluence line is not as evident in the HRRR, just kind of a big slug, wide open warm sector. It's probably out in this zone with this pop in the low level jet here. Yeah, the 3 kilometer NAM has more of a cleaner warm sector, just storms initiating off that main boundary, but I do think there's going to be renegades just with that amount of instability. This is big time 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative helicity, about double what we had during the March 17 event. Much more robust out here. You can see these gravity waves nested within that low level jet. At 4 p.m. then 3 kilometer NAM then moves that band of supercells into northwestern Mississippi. You can kind of see the hint of some renegades forming there along this prefrontal confluence line. You can even see it a bit in this cloud matter. Just doesn't seem like the 3-kilometer NIM. It kind of has the renegades in this prefrontal line. Well, they're going to be there. There's that prefrontal band as indicated by the HRRR. That's the 6Z run. Shifting back over, see how it changed. So it looks like from 6Z to the 11Z run, the HRRR is making this prefrontal confluence line even more prominent. And that was definitely the case too in the March 17 event, with that line just to the south of Meridian and Selma and even up toward the Tuscaloosa area. In this case, it looks like it's shifted just a little bit to the northwest, that confluence line. But a very dangerous day ahead across the high-risk area. Let's pull up the new outlook that is out, the new 13Z outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center. And there's that purple, the high risk. Does look like it has been even expanded just a little bit south per the latest outlook. So definitely favoring the HRRR here. 30% probabilities for tornadoes. Basically maxed out across this zone. And this is the latest wrap, and that's the forecast for 19Z. The wrap fires a renegade near from central Mississippi and then moves it up toward the Tupelo area. You can see that. You probably can't see this cursor, but it looks like it develops that storm near the Grenada area and then moves northeast toward Tupelo, just to the north of Starkville. That's kind of the first mode. You can see there, and it develops as early as 17Z, just to the west of Columbus, racing off to the northeast toward Tupelo. And then the next mode develops, and you can see that's being indicated down toward the Natchez area to the south of Vicksburg. And that's going to lift northeast, probably to the north of Jackson, through Starkville area, up through Columbus, and then eventually also toward the Tuscaloosa, Birmingham areas. But that initial storm, I'm going to want to be on that initial storm. That's probably near Tupelo, central Mississippi toward Tupelo. And then I'll reposition south to get the next round coming in across central Mississippi. But it does look like the wrap is starting to trend toward the HRRR with that prefrontal confluence line existing across central and northern Mississippi. Look at that thing. It's going to be a nasty storm up there. Oh, God. Look at that. 300, 0 to 1 kilometer shear with that storm moving from northeastern Mississippi into northwestern Alabama. It's dangerous as it gets, folks. And here in Columbus, I can see some breaks in the clouds. Right now I'm trying to transfer this video. I can show you a little bit of that firmer convection I was able to see through a hole in the clouds. Well, you could definitely see that evolution. I just love the wrap model for these events and watching its trends. And notice how that 50-knot low-level jet axis is also focused along and to the southeast of that confluence line. And it increases, too, from 17 to 19Z, really ramping up there, southeastern Louisiana through central and eastern Mississippi toward northwestern Alabama. So by as early as 17Z, which about 11 a.m., noon. Woo! So by about noon, those storms initiated central Mississippi, and the RAP and the HRRR take that storm over Tupelo into northwestern Alabama, with another round developing down near Vicksburg to Natchez, moving northeast through central Mississippi, Columbus, up toward Tuscaloosa, and probably another round just after that as well. You can already see capes are already in excess of 2,000 across southern Mississippi. There is a subtle capping inversion, too, that's going to delay supercell initiation until about noon. Early afternoon is also when that first storm fired during the super outbreak near Jackson, tracking up toward Philadelphia, producing the EF5. And then you had the warm front light up as well, further north, northeastern Mississippi, northern Alabama, bigger wedges, lower cloud bases. And every one of these outbreaks is different. This one's going to be unique, and there's going to be surprises as to how it plays out. There always is down here. And yeah, this most scary thing is just this massive warm sector, untainted by early convection, wide open, and that's not surprising that there is such a massive warm sector like this with such a stout, elevated mix layer overspreading this multi-state warm sector. Trying to wait for this content to come through Bluetooth. There's also that event coming down the line on day 3. See how this surface map is evolving. So look at that. Up in Columbus, 64 over 63 north of that warm front. The warm front's through Meridian, 71 over 67. Jackson, 72 over 68. And down to the south, you get those juicy low 70s dew points. Probably will set up right at that confluence line that's forecast to set up across central Mississippi. A little bit of rain up there across northern Mississippi. That's going to get out and be no problem. The morning sounding out of Lake Charles has record-breaking lapse rates. That elevated mix layer is overspreading the warm sector. Didn't shift that surface map, but there you can see Jackson 72 over 68. Meridian 71 over 67. And I'm up here in Columbus. It's an easy shot up to Tupelo. There's a good east-west road as well, but got to decide whether to stay in Columbus and really work that confluence line, or do I head up toward Tupelo and intercept that storm? It's going to move from Grenada up toward Tupelo into northwest Alabama. And then additional storms develop down to the southwest of that near Vicksburg. And those are going to lift off to the northeast, probably near just to the north of Jackson up toward Columbus. So a couple different rounds are anticipated for this severe weather. And my plan is to probably work that confluence line. I'm noticing that the RAP is beginning to trend toward the HRRR as well. Let's take a look at some of the radar going on right now this morning. Hello? Good. Audio still working. There is a little bit of morning convection just to the north of this warm front right now. Show you the radar here. Here you can see the Radar Omega app. Definitely showing convection being forced up and over that warm front. Isentropic lift. You can see the kind of the spotty nature of it. Warm front's probably something like that. And there is some thunder with this elevated storms. But then it looks like off to the west, you're starting to clear out that convection with that elevated mix layer overspreading the zone, a little stronger capping moving in there. And that should be the open warm sector we've been talking about. Most of this should just lift off to the northeast. As right now, here in Columbus, we're 64 over 63, and we've got a lot of convection throughout the area. Definitely some elevated convection that will need to blow through. Once all this lifts off to the northeast, then we'll begin the destabilization process with those supercells initiating at around 12 or 1. First storms could develop out near Grenada and then move to the northeast toward Tupelo. And then another round of convection develops down near Vicksburg. And then that one will lift to the northeast through central Mississippi, probably along that confluence line. Here you can see Don tracking with a cyclone port unit on these elevated storms to the northwest of Birmingham. 63 over 60 out there, so definitely stable. Elevated storms out there. He's in the Jasper area, northwestern Alabama. Some special weather statements down there near Tuscaloosa. You're waking up hearing some thunder, but that's all elevated so far. Nothing to worry about right now with that. Let's take a look at satellite. And on the visible satellite, you can definitely see this elevated mix layer punching in from southwest to northeast. A lot of clearing down here. Storm chasers activating. A little bit of a cirrus plume coming in here, but you can see in general this massive elevated mix layer coming in. It's going to overspread this warm sector and lead to dramatic destabilization. Comes. I bet that this confluence line is going to set up right on the northwestern side of this cirrus shield. Deeper moisture off to the southeast of it. Strongest wind shear to the southeast of it. And you can also see this elevated mix layer punching into the north, which should open up northern Mississippi, central western Tennessee as well. Like that one is now severe, that elevated storm to the north of Birmingham a ways, between Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, or between Birmingham and Huntsville. This storm is severe, but it's elevated between Birmingham and Decatur. Near the Coleman area, probably getting a little bit of hail on the north side of town. Maybe some strong winds with that. Warning statement indicates about an inch of hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds there in Coleman. Brandon Kopic, you're probably hearing some thunder this morning all tucked in and cozy in there in your hotel in Coleman. So let me see now if I can get that as live in here. Found it. I'm extreme meteorologist Reed Timmer in Columbus, Mississippi, with thunder this morning with elevated storms to the north of a warm front that's lifting rapidly northward through southern Mississippi this morning. Eventually, that warm front's expected to lift all the way through Tennessee, leaving behind it a very unstable and strongly sheared warm sector. And this morning, we have a high risk in place through the day today for a tornado outbreak that's expected across northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, central and western Tennessee. Long track supercells with strong, violent tornadoes are anticipated today with strong instability and incredibly strong low-level wind shear. Dew points are going to rise to the 60s up to near 70 here across central and northern Mississippi, central and northern Alabama as well. And that looks to be the focus of long track supercell storms. Also, the main warm front that's going to be lifting through Tennessee, maybe even reaching as far north as Kentucky, will also be the focus of supercell storms and tornadoes to the north of the high-risk area up there. A little bit more of a low instability, high wind shear case, but I do expect supercells to initiate by early afternoon across central and western Mississippi and move rapidly northeastward. Storm motions today are going to be up near 50 to 60 knots, so very fast storm motions as well. There's also going to be multiple rounds of storms, including those prefrontal confluence bands, those renegade supercells that are going to form out ahead of the main cold front and move into the very strong wind shear. That low-level jet axis is going to accelerate above 60 knots, just a kilometer above the wind, and that's what's really fueling the low-level shear that's going to be available for these storms. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to stay tuned to those watches and those warnings today, coupled with the safety plan. That's what's going to keep your family safe. Staying tuned to those tornado warnings, being aware of those storms, being ready to execute that safety plan, being aware of nearby storm shelters as well. If you live in those mobile home parks, that's what's going to save your lives today when these storms arrive. But a very dangerous day is ahead. You can see the rapid low-level jet cruising from south to north this morning. You can hear the thunder in the sky with those elevated storms, but this warm front's going to lift rapidly northward through here. The sun is going to come out. That's going to ramp up the instability, and then this dangerous tornado outbreak is going to begin and continue through the afternoon and the overnight hours tonight. I'm extreme meteorologist Reed Timmer in Columbus, Mississippi, with thunder this morning with elevated storms to the north of a warm front that's lifting rapidly northward through southern Mississippi this morning. Eventually, that warm front's expected to lift all the way through Tennessee, leaving behind it a very unstable and strongly sheared warm sector. And this morning, we have a high risk in place through the day today for a tornado outbreak that's expected across northeastern Mississippi, northwestern Alabama, central and western Tennessee. Long track supercells with strong, violent tornadoes are anticipated today with strong instability and incredibly strong low-level wind shear. Dew points are going to rise to the 60s up to near 70 here across central and northern Mississippi, central and northern Alabama as well. And that looks to be the focus of long track supercell storms. Also, the main warm front that's going to be lifting through Tennessee, maybe even reaching as far north as Kentucky, will also be the focus of supercell storms and tornadoes to the north of the high-risk area up there. A little bit more of a low instability, high wind shear case, but I do expect supercells to initiate by early afternoon across central and western Mississippi and move rapidly northeastward. Storm motions today are going to be up near 50 to 60 knots, so very fast storm motions as well. There's also going to be multiple rounds of storms, including those prefrontal confluence bands, those renegade supercells that are going to form out ahead of the main cold front and move into the very strong wind shear. That low-level jet axis is going to accelerate above 60 knots, just a kilometer above the wind, and that's what's really fueling the low-level shear that's going to be available for these storms. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to stay tuned to those watches and those warnings today, coupled with the safety plan. That's what's going to keep your family safe. Staying tuned to those tornado warnings, being aware of those storms, being ready to execute that safety plan, being aware of nearby storm shelters as well if you live in those mobile home parks. Okay, everybody. Stay safe today. I'm going to be signing off here, getting ready to reposition. But I cannot say enough how important it is to stay tuned to those watches and those warnings, anticipate the severe weather, have that severe weather safety plan in place for you and your family. Should be well practiced by this point. If you are in a mobile home, definitely be aware of where those shelters are in your location. Maybe you have a friend that has a storm shelter. You could spend the afternoon and the overnight there within range of that shelter. But definitely a dangerous day today. Fast-moving storms, round after round of tornadic supercells. Looks like a prefrontal confluence line that will be the focus for these tornadic supercells. Basically a fire hose of long-track tornadic storms being ejected from this confluence line. Definitely be safe. Second high risk during the month of March. First time this has happened in decades, and definitely a scary day. But as long as you stay prepared, stay in control of your situation, it's nothing to panic or be or to fear that much. It's something to respect, and definitely if you have a plan in place, then you should be fine from this severe weather. But stay tuned to those watches and warnings. Dangerous day about to unfold. Stay safe, everybody.